And they suggest that if you can't conceive of this state, try to move one of your hands up and to the left the next time you are dreaming. And they say, good luck. And then they go on. The second of the less developed groups are those who are sick of mind because of their excesses in drug, alcohol, or sick thinking. These people are lost in the sickness of their own mind. At death, they find themselves in darkness with nothing but monstrous images to keep them company. They could float there for ages in torturous agony, unable to find a way out of the darkness, being in the subconscious state also. Fortunately, both of these groups will move to the next step, but it could take a long time as we understand time. And then they move on to step 3. We understand that a person may move to step 2 or skip that step and go directly to step 3, and even skip that step and go to the next, depending on his development. In this step, step 3, as in the previous one, what a person experiences will be strongly influenced by what he believes will happen after death. This is where he will meet those who went before him in death and those whom he most wants to see again. Here he begins the process of finishing those things which were left undone on earth. And they try to give you this explanation then. This is where you were to come to the understanding that those things unmanifested in the other realities may now be completed safely. In other words, this is where those dangerous things that you thought of, or those time-consuming things that you thought of, that were going to take so long that the monkey would be here for thousands of years, they're going to be finished here. So they go on and say, this is where he finishes life, so to speak. This is where that which is often described as clear, more real, as if the veil were lifted and things are seen in a new and real way. This is where that description is given. It is here also that one of the misunderstandings of many religions come into play. This state is often confused with being in heaven, which might well explain why heaven is described in so many different ways. It isn't the end state of the soul which has finally made it to redemption. Rather, it is the playing out of those thought creations until the person can see the light and move on to the next step. Depending on their awareness, each individual stays here living out their lives to the last wish, or at some point, seeing this state for what it is, they may go on to the next step. Eventually, they all move to step 4, and this is where the highly developed move at death. In other words, they skip all these steps, then they go right to step 4. So here's step 4, and they say, we now have those who are highly developed and those from the prior steps who have finally arrived at step 4. In this step, they again review their just completed life, weigh it against the purpose for which they were incarnated in their previous lives. This is where they meet their judge. You know, the one so often talked about in the Bible and elsewhere in religion, myth, and lore. That horrible judge who will throw you into the pits of hell because he judges you to have sinned. The same judge who is so unforgiving and cruel. How could we have been so misinformed and poorly taught? How many lives were ruined by this misinformation? How did the facts get so warped and turned around? Could we have been controlled by this lie? And here they throw in something again. But what are they saying? We were told that this judge, be it God or the devil or whatever your religion says, judges us and says you've sinned or you haven't sinned, and how much of that misinformation has affected your life is what they're asking. And the effect that it had on your life, what was the effect that it had? Did this lie get something accomplished that wouldn't have been accomplished in the other way? So what they're going to do then is to tell you the truth. Who is this judge who judges us thus? They say, it's you, judging you. Who else could it have been? Who else could truly and fairly judge you? Who knows what you saw, what you knew, what your motives were with each decision? It is you who judges, and it is you who judges as no other could. In this judging, you can see the places where you succeeded and where you fell short. You will see the whole plan, how this life fits that plan, and what was to be accomplished. You judge. As this review continues, you begin to see the future needs of your development. And here they say, with help, a plan is formulated. Actually, some will go through this process of judging and see this and see that, and see some need to be developed in another life. Some will not get the picture and have to be helped greatly. So they say in here, with help, a plan is formulated. Obviously, the ones that come right here are not going to need any help. They know what they did that was good, what they didn't quite make, and they know what it is they need to work on next, and off they go. So it's kind of a dual thing depending on your development. And they go on and say, the plan is obvious to the most developed individuals, but help is needed with those less developed. The plan lays out the things to be worked on and what is to be accomplished in the next life. What are the strengths in the persona? What are the weaknesses? What wasn't learned last time? What was learned? What extreme could be lessened by the experience of the next life? Could tremendous advances be made if you were placed in a specific relationship? These are the kinds of questions that are asked and answered. This is how a person is placed back in the earth's influences. This is how a new birth is chosen. What are the needs? What are the projected conditions of this new vessel? In other words, this new monkey that's being born. What do they see as conditions that it's going to go through? Some of the greatest orchestrations in creation are found here. Some of the greatest orchestrations in creation are found here. Orchestrations. What are they saying? They're saying when they look at the needs and they look at the projected conditions of this new human being being born, they orchestrate, they put things together, they create a scenario that'll give you the best chance for development. And then they go on, but wait, it can be seen that were a person allowed to incarnate at this point, he would be the same person he was in the last life. He would have the same traits, same desires, same everything that he had consciously before, but a new body. You can see the need for further changes in his character or persona before he incarnates again. With these changes, the next life would truly become a new experience rather than a continuation of the old one. It makes sense that these changes are necessary when you think how slowly people really change in life. For so many here on earth, the change is so small from birth to death that it is all but unnoticed. How the church expects a person to believe that he has only one lifetime to change from his present state to someone worthy of standing before God is a mystery beyond our comprehension. Is it any wonder that a thinking man, or just an observant man for that matter, sees the futility of the task and goes golfing? From our vantage point, knowing the changes the average person needs to make to complete his task here, people change very slowly, if at all. That understood, it becomes even more obvious that a person needs other experiences to fall between each life in the hopes that a greater change might be accomplished. As we discussed, without a break in memory and some change of condition before rebirth, man would just be a continuation of the past life. Same old traits, same old problems, same old everything. Were you inclined to mount an argument to the contrary, we would ask you to show the many examples of persons who were born strongly one type and died displaying many changes in character and type. The abundance of that condition has not been noticed here, nor has the lack of definite character almost at birth been noticed. Strong character at birth, little modification by death, that's what we see. So what they're doing here is laying out an argument that they don't see much change in a life from birth to death. They see pretty strong characters at birth. And I think all of us who have had brothers and sisters would say that there weren't too many namby-pamby, very flexible, changeable people at birth. And the character that the children who were born had seems to carry through until they die. So perhaps they're right in their observation. A strong desire for alcohol in the last life, you might lose some of that desire passing through the conditions present
As you can see, the explanation of what a sphere is becomes all but impossible were it not for some help in the form of a book. The book comes to us from a supposed science fiction adventure which takes place in a very strange place. Were it not for an understanding of what it really was, the strangeness of the adventure and its point would all but be lost. What it is a description by the author of a sphere of influence he had just traveled. He was a rare person who was able to remember his experiences in the sphere and was able to write them in book form. The book is published by Balaton Books and has a Library of Congress catalog number 63-15669 and an ISBN number of 345-23208-9-125. The name of the book is A Voyage to Arcturus, and it was written by David Lindsay. In reading the book, it must be remembered that this book had to be pushed off as science fiction, or at least that type of book at the time that it was written. The beginning has been modified thusly. Still, the content from then on is very true to form and would be what you'd expect to find in that sphere. Also, it should be remembered that it is only one of many spheres, and they're all very different. Each one is designed to bring about the possibility of change in a persona and to make remembering of a past life even harder. The choice of which sphere each person is to traverse depends on the need at the given time. In the end, all we can say is, thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Without your book, we would be at a loss to explain a sphere, what in the world a sphere of influence was. So what they're saying is that it's very difficult to tell you what a sphere of influence is, but if you want an example of it, you find Mr. Lindsay's book and you read it. And of course, I have, and I do have to say that it's really strange. It's a strange book, but you can see that when he entered the sphere and he exited the sphere, there was some kind of change in the person that he was. Probably an excellent example, and as they say, without the book, boy, you'd be at a real loss to explain what a sphere of influence is. And even then, it's difficult to understand, but at least you get the feel for what it would be like to enter a place that was going to influence you and go through the actions almost in a dream state again and come out the other end having been modified, but with an understanding of something or kind of a change in your persona. Excellent, excellent book. Really need to read it. Then they go to step 6. When this experience in the sphere has been completed, the persona returns to the place of review and enters into the last step of death. In this step, the person either chooses or is assigned his next incarnation. Imagine if you can a printout from a supercomputer that contains all the information about a soon-to-be-born baby. The information includes the parents, the relatives, and the people who would be around the child at that time when the child is going to be born. Add to that the probabilities of what is likely to occur in each person's life and even the child's life, and everything that's going to occur in that present environment. In other words, like, is the family poor or is it wealthy? Do the parents live in a certain place in the country? Who are they in the community? What kind of job do they have? Who are around them? That sort of thing. Add again the child's positive and negative genetic traits and temperament and a myriad of other conditions. Then run the computer program and see just exactly what the prediction will be for the probable life of that child. Now here what they're saying is that they're taking into account all the predictable or possible predictable. I guess you couldn't say predictable because there's free will. And that's kind of been the problem with the total picture of this thing, is that whoever it is that they are that are doing the predicting or calculating, as the they that have given me this information have said, maybe 80% predictable people are, maybe 80% predictable. And there's that 20% that is kind of, you can guess a trend, but it is not locked. So were it locked, then the computer could figure it all out, know exactly what you were going to go through in life, and that would be it. But there's that 20% question mark. So they're running a prediction what that child is going to have as an experience when it's born. And then they go on and say, with that information, each child to be born then is kind of processed or matched to the computer printout. When you find the proper match and that persona moves into a position to enter that child, you come very close to seeing what happens in the last step. Does the persona get to choose a child, or is it forced upon him? That depends on his development. Some know where they must go and what must be done next. Some resist the karmic lesson with great vigor and are placed, so to speak. Does the process always work properly? The answer lies in the fact that we have some amount of free will here on earth. With that free will, man may choose quite another path than the one that was expected. No amount of computing can compensate for man's ability to choose. And they go into kind of a sub-explanation. That might help explain the whys of crib death. Conditions have changed. Something changed that caused the child to become a poor choice for the persona who entered. The change could be as close as the parent's decision to put self first, or as far away as another country's decision to go to war. Barring sudden change, though, the choice given by the computer will be the best possible choice for the child and the best lesson for the persona. Now, do you understand what they're saying here? Crib deaths. That might help explain crib death. Conditions have changed. Something changed that caused the child to become the baby, the thing that the persona entered to become a poor choice for the persona. And the change could have been as close as the parent's decision to put self first, whatever that means. Divorce, alcoholism, new job, something in front of the child, or as far away as a decision of some country not even around us that decides to go to war. And that makes being that child a very poor choice. View of why maybe young children bow out certainly wouldn't be a thing that a parent would want to hear, but the object here is to give the persona the best experience. And if the experience all of a sudden turns negative by choices of men, then perhaps at that age the persona has the choice of bowing out. It's not going to be a good life for him. Not going to learn what it was before. Whole different view of things. All of this is a whole different view, but that certainly is very different. And they go on. And so the cycle goes with birth, life on earth, and death. A series of influence, and back to birth again until the persona reaches the development required to leave the system. At that point, and the point they're talking about is when the persona reaches the development required and is then allowed to leave the system. At that point, were he not to return for help, he can give the persona, and the soul can again continue the journey to other places or back to the love of Father. Now, they did say kind of like they're going to go on, continuing their journey, or they're going to go back to Father, unless they decide to stay here and help. In other words, they said at that point, were he not to return for the help he can give, the persona and the soul can continue the journey to other places or back to the love of Father. So there is one exception. One, obviously, many of them must not go. They must return and see if they can help. So that's, there again, they just slide something in that kind of gives you a little bit better view of the world, the way they see it. And the way they see it is that sometimes those souls who have gone through the earth experience and are qualified to leave now, perfectly okay to leave, no more attraction to the earth sphere, they sometimes stay and help. kind of an interesting picture of things, something that we probably wouldn't expect to hear. I never heard of it, but might give you a clue as to, well, actually, I kind of wonder how they do that, like helping angels, guardian angels, or the little whisper, or, they didn't say how. Be nice to be able to ask them that. Going on, then, the next part is where the author, which is me, gets to kind of, again, give his view, or if you will, my view of what just transpired, what we just read there. So I'll go on with what I had to say. And I said, now there's a different view of the mind and how it works in terms of our wishes. Imagine the research that could be done to see if there was a connection between the conscious and the subconscious mind that would work to fulfill our wants and desires. What I said there was, you remember when they were talking about fulfilling the desires, and they're saying you can want something to happen like tomorrow, and the subconscious doesn't recognize time, so it could be months, years later. It wouldn't even have to be in this reality. It wouldn't even have to be in this lifetime. Imagine the research that you could do to see if there was a way to like talk to the subconscious in terms that it would understand that you wanted it to happen in this now time and in this reality that we recognize. Probably a self, kind of like a power thing, kind of a self. I want things to go my way sort of thing. They probably didn't go into that because that's kind of the problem, isn't it? That we want what we want when we want it, and that isn't the way it works. You don't learn anything to get things the way you want them when you want them. Having done research in Book 5 and knowing a little bit more about what it was that caused problems in the past, that was one of the major problems, because they were able to talk to the subconscious. You'd call it magic. They that gave us this call it being able to talk to the subconscious, that part that you're not aware of, and get us to do what they wanted it to do when they wanted to do it. Cause all manner of disruptions. Cause the cleaning of, it caused the flood. It caused the advent of the flood. The Noah flood, even though that isn't, well, that's for Book 5. Anyway, they were taken off the earth because they were causing so much disruption. So perhaps maybe we shouldn't be doing the research, but it is something that I saw. And I went on, if they could prove that it did work that way, then what we have been taught about how we must proceed to get what we want in life is all false. Does the subconscious have to fulfill our conscious mind's wishes? Is that what Aladdin's lamp and King Midas' touch was all about? Did those in the past send us a message hidden in fairy tales? One of the things that I came across kind of accidentally is that fairy tales aren't. Some of the things that were sent on into the future from those that knew were hidden in fairy tales. In fact, a lot of things were hidden in fairy tales. Very important things. But there again, we're back to I want what I want when I want it, and as you will see in Book 3, that doesn't cut it. So you'll have to wait to Book 3 to find out what I mean. Then I go on. Then there is this death stuff. I have read enough to know that people do see their life pass before them in a split second in a life-threatening situation. We have all read about people who were about to die, who told of seeing things as they were between the worlds. They were surprised to find how much clearer things were, how much brighter, and how much more color. They talked to their loved ones who had passed before them as if they were right there. Those things would be a support for the concept brought forth here. Still, reincarnations, sphere of influence, choosing our next life, can all these things be true? If they are, then the responsibility for where we are in this life is ours. We did choose our family. We did choose our station in life, the place where we live, the people we meet, and maybe a whole lot more. By our choices, we either chose all that or it was given us because of the poor choices we made in previous lives. They sure know how to shake up our nice, safe, not responsible attitude. Now, here again, we're looking at this and saying, why, haven't you ever heard somebody say, hey, I didn't choose my parents? Maybe that's not true. You either chose your parents literally, or they were chosen for you because of the poor decisions that you've been making. I didn't choose my life situation. Wrong. I didn't choose the country I live in. Wrong. I didn't choose the friends that are around me. Wrong. We are responsible. And all through these books, I notice that that's one of the things that there's just no hiding from it. We are responsible. If it's happening to us, we are responsible. Now, that's tough. That's as close as you can get to standing in front of the mirror of life and seeing yourself. And through all of the readings that you can come across that mention the mirror, almost all of them indicate to you that you will run away insane or die standing in front of that mirror. And the allegory there is that you cannot face the true you, who you are. And here they're almost making you stand in front of that mirror with the understanding that you are responsible. Then I go on. On the other side, I've always found it hard to believe that so many of us were condemned to hell, since I could see few, if any, that met the church's definition of worthy to go to heaven. I saw even less changing because of church's hard work and the dedication to Christ's teaching. In truth, I saw more work to be done at the highest levels of the church than anywhere else. Before I get carried away, I will let them express their views about that in Book 5. It seems to me that there must be some other system being used, or as I said, we are doomed. In other words, even I personally don't see much change in those who are involved in the church itself. Even in the highest levels of the church seem to be less likely to change than anywhere else. Maybe more change being seen on the golf course. Horrible thought, but